Hello everyone, Jono Anzalone here again. This week we are diving into some reflections on one of the most crucial and critical aspects of disaster management, which is coordination. Whether you're working in a domestic emergency operations center, EOC, or an international humanitarian setting, how we coordinate across agencies, sectors, and borders can really mean the difference between life and death. As I reflect upon my experience working within the Incident Command System, what we often call ICS, I'm happy to share some perspectives around coordination that remain ever more visible today. So looking at the ICS system and international coordination, we're also going to reflect a little bit upon the informal networks and power dynamics that shape decision-making. I always like to say that coordination just isn't about organizational charts, it's about trust, an underlying sense of relationships and shared understanding that happens under pressure. So one of my experience that really shaped my thinking within the last 10 years was Hurricane Harvey back in 2016. I was supporting the lead role for the American Red Cross in Houston, Texas for our Texas operation. And we had essentially hundreds of varieties of agencies, federal, state, and local stakeholders that were emerging as, quote, first responders. Everyone was working hard, but there was one significant problem, which I've seen in every single after action and lessons learned report, like that one in Hurricane Harvey. Some organizations weren't showing up for coordination meetings, others were duplicating efforts, delivering the same items in the same communities while others received nothing. I remember walking into a coordination meeting that had just received a report of distribution of water tablets due to the water supply issues, and they came from a variety of sources. But yet there were no tarps, there was no food, there was no latrines in this particular community. That moment really crystallized for me that coordination isn't just a luxury, it is essentially a responsibility that we have as leaders in emergency management. And certainly in the time of pressure, we often will say we don't have time for coordination meetings. We want to think about doing rather than planning. And that type of mentality can be really dangerous when it comes to system dynamics and, of course, the overall coordination imperative. It's not just about systems, it's about humility as well as communication. So as you're going through this module, some of the things that I would consider reflecting on is where your organization sits in a coordination structure, and how do you really build legitimacy in a structure that may be pressured based off of limited resources of individuals to attend those coordination meetings, often seen as bureaucratic or slowing processes down. And that really helps us to think about who decides who gets the lead, and perhaps most importantly, how do we ensure that the coordination serves those most impacted, not just the needs of our institutions? So I hope you enjoy this module, whether the tactical and relational intersections are something that you deal with every day. And as you're exploring ICS, the cluster system internationally, and multi-level coordination, don't lose sight of the people behind those protocols. Looking forward to another week with you and some additional reflections next week.